So this is HTML CSS2. I'm going to go into student preview mode and start preview. So I'm going to see what you guys see. And going into week 1, day 2. And what we're going to be talking about here in day 2 is wireframing and design. So wireframing, let's go ahead and go into this resources online. And this one is the first link. And that's not what I wanted to do. I want to click on that. So wireframe. So what exactly is a wireframe? Wireframes are one of the simplest tools you can use to convey a big idea. Basically, it's like the outline. You know, when you try to write a paper, you have an outline. Well, what a wireframe is kind of like a visual outline. And the tool that we'll be using as we're creating wireframes is Figma. And this is where we're getting the resources. So a wireframe is a simple visual guide that represents the skeletal framework of a website or digital product. So think of it as a blueprint for our final design. We're giving it some details so everybody knows what it's going to look like without us actually coding it yet. You're not going so deep that you're, giving exact details on everything, but we want to kind of give them a visual of what to expect. And if there's anything that they want us to change, add, or take away, then they can let us know now. When I say they, I'm referring to our client. And so that we can, make those updates before we dive into coding something that's not ultimately what they want. Wireframes are most often created by designers. They need to be basic enough so that everyone from other designer stakeholders, developers, and others can understand the ideas. So the Figma and wireframing, I said, is more like a designing tool. And it can be hard if you're a non-artistic person, such as myself, to have a blank piece of paper and to try to create something. So what we're going to be doing ultimately is one of the projects for this class is to redo the Hocking College bookstore. Okay. So you can probably tell already that this does not the style of this particular web page is not in line with the rest of Hocking College's website. So I don't know why. I'm not going to ask. It is what it is. But I thought this would be a fun project for us to actually start, have something like, say we get, Hocking College bookstore. They're wanting to redesign their website because it's no longer a bookstore, it's more of a spirit store. So they're kind of wanting to rethink what their web page is going to look like. So this would be a fun way for us to start looking at it. And, we have a client that's wanting to redo their website, update it, their web page, update it, and this would be a fun project that we can work on. So this is ultimately kind of going to be what our ultimate project is. And what I want us to do with wireframing is to kind of put some thoughts on paper in a visual aspect. Wireframes are not the time to set anything in stone. So it needs to be easy to update and to change. There are types of wireframes. In a traditional design process, wireframes come after on-the-fly hand-drawn sketches. So if you have something hand-drawn, or you're just kind of, working with somebody, trying to get some ideas onto paper, it's not pretty. It's just the kind of like just the general layout. And then after you get that stuff that's on paper, then you can use the tools in Figma to put some more character in it. It says there are two types of levels of wireframing, low fidelity and high fidelity. Though you can go straight from a low fidelity wireframe to a prototype and skip high fidelity wireframing as a distinct step. So what is low fidelity wireframing? Low fidelity is the most basic type of wireframing. It's so simplistic that paper and pen will still suffice in a way to represent your ideas. But when creating with Figma, you will allow you to easily share them and make sure that your team has access. So there is a collaborative tool within Figma. For the free version, I think you can only have 4 people on a team, 3 or 4 people. There is a limit on a team. So just be aware of that. Low fidelity wireframes are done in grayscale with a focus on the layout, as you can see right here. Like they have one big block and 2 smaller blocks. UI elements and content are represented by basic shapes like squares, triangles, and circles. So we're just doing the layout. We're doing the pieces. We're not worried about what's necessarily in the pieces and the colors and all of that stuff. We're just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle on our web page. High fidelity wireframing takes what you put together in the low fidelity stage and sprinkles it with more of the detailed elements. So high fidelity wireframes include the visual markers and brandings, like colors, graphics, and stuff. We put more details into it, as I said earlier. They look realistic and may even include textures and shadows. At this stage, a designer may choose to add an image and a copy this wireframing kit. So let's see. So you can see that this has got some more details of it. Okay. So best practices for creating wireframes. There's no hard and fast rules that you need to include in your wireframe. And that what must leave out, but there are some best practices. Keep aesthetics elements simple, so just keep them on a grayscale. Don't get too crazy with the fonts. Keep it simple. Represent graphics and images with boxes. Let's see. Consider screen size. Wireframes should be equally creative and technical. So as you guys know, there's multiple screen sizes out there, from your smallest phone to your biggest monitor. Let's see. Take into consideration screen orientation. So that's something to consider if somebody's looking at their phone landscape or portrait. When to use a wireframe. There's almost no wrong time to use a wireframe, but there are some instances where they can be extra helpful. Whether you're trying to explain your idea to someone or get everybody on the same page, you can use the wireframe. Again, this is your ability to show what you're going to create without having to actually, create it. And again, as time is money, and things like that. So get stakeholders to focus because of the magic of wireframe lies in the simplicity and won't get hung up on downstream details like colors and images. Catch problems early. If they don't, though they don't present the actual functionality of a page, wireframes allow you to map out how all the elements will look. Cut down on revision time. So if they catch problems early, or don't have to revise a problem that wasn't, created. Decide content prioritization. Wireframes naturally reveal space constraints and the hierarchy of elements on the page. So if you don't want to get things too nested on that, and you just want to make sure that it's a good user experience for your end user, which goes with this: test usability with users. When you're testing out a new idea with someone and they don't want to see every detail, they just want to see what the functionality of it is, and be able to, operate on that page in the way that they want to. So wireframing in Figma, some designers like to continue sketching wireframes by hand using a blank sheet of paper. For those that want to jump in, designing on screen they have wireframe templates. I like to do pen to paper because, again, I just need that action, that connection of pen to paper, and then I can start putting it on a wireframe. So the wireframe is the blueprint for what happens next in the process. Once it's a good place, you can start adding the content and copying, building from there. So that is basically what a wireframe is. It's just doing the layout. Now, obviously, if we're using templates or Webflow or WordPress and their themes or anything of that nature, you may not even need this step. But it's a good thing to be aware of whenever you're trying to come up with an idea, especially if you're a non-designer like me, and that's kind of where you struggle. You get kind of analysis paralysis. Sometimes it just helps just to put it on pen to paper, so to speak, and then do the wireframing. So that's wireframing. And that's going to be the end of this particular video. Yeah, that's going to be the end of this particular video. Then we're going to start with the assignments. Okay.